The hour of 9 a.m. having arrived, the House will come to order. Members, please take your seats. Sergeants at arms, please close the doors of the House. Prayer today will be offered by our colleague, Representative Cepeda Freitas. Immediately after prayer, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Members and guests, please rise as able.
Good morning, buenos días. Amado Padre Celestial, hoy venimos ante ti con corazones humildes, reconociendo que toda autoridad viene de ti. Recuérdanos, Papá Dios, lo que nos enseña tu palabra, que lo bueno y lo que tú pides de nosotros es hacer justicia, amar misericordia y caminar humildemente contigo. Danos sabiduría para decidir con rectitud, amor para servir a nuestro prójimo y unidad para trabajar por el bien común. Ayúdanos a ver a cada persona como tú la ves, con dignidad, valor y propósito. Danos valor para siempre hacer lo correcto, compasión para entender y firmeza para defender la verdad. Que nuestras acciones reflejen el ejemplo de Jesús y que todo lo que hagamos sea para honrar tu nombre y bendecir a nuestro pueblo. En el nombre de Jesús oramos. Amén.
Amen. I pledge allegiance. Sergeant at arms will open the doors of the House. Members and guests, please take your seats. Without objection, the approval of the journal from Sunday, August the 10th, 2025 will be postponed until printed. Are there requests for leaves of absence? The chair recognizes the majority whip, who indicates there are none. Chair recognizes the minority whip, who indicates there are none. Chair is about to take the master roll call. Members will proceed to vote. Have all the members voted? Have all the members voted? Clerk will record the vote. 203 members having voted on the master roll call. A quorum is present. Colleagues, if I can have your attention, we have some guests here this morning. The House will come to order. Please take your seats. We have some guests here this morning. Our colleague who serves Bucks County, Representative Marcel, is seated to the left of the speaker's rostrum this morning with one of her favorite constituents. We are so excited to have her 10-year-old son, Mason, here. He's going to 5th grade in a few weeks. He loves to play football, and his favorite video game is Roblox. Welcome, Mason. We're glad to have you in the hall of the House. Also seated to the left of the speaker's rostrum, our colleague that serves Delaware County, Representative Curry's youngest constituent in her household is here. We are so excited to welcome her daughter, Rowan, back to the Capitol. Rowan told me her summer's been so-so. Welcome, Rowan, to the halls of the House. Our Our colleague that serves Philadelphia County, Representative Solomon, has his legislative interns here. We are thrilled to welcome Sally, who graduated from Indiana University with her degree in law and public policy. She's working hard in the 202nd District, and this summer she is joined by Aaron, who graduated from Michigan University with a degree in sports management. Sally and Aaron, thank you for your hard work this summer. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader, who calls up. Chair recognizes Representative Harris, Chair of the Committee on Appropriations, who reports the following bill. House Bill 1788, re-reported as committed. Will the House agree the report is agreed to? The Chair now recognizes the Majority Leader, who calls up House Bill 1788, printers number 2194, on page 1 of Supplemental Calendar A. Will the House agree the bill? Representative Bradford offers A 01614 as a technical amendment pursuant to House Rule 24. Will the House agree to the amendment? Those in favor of the amendment will be voting aye. Chair recognizes Representative Bradford for a brief description of the technical amendment.
This is a technical amendment that makes an improvement to a small typo. Thank you.
Those in favor of the amendment will be voting aye. Those opposed will be voting no. Members will proceed to vote. Have all the members voted? Have all the members voted? Clerk will record the votes. On the amendment, the ayes are 106, the nays are 97. The amendment is agreed to. Will the House agree to the bill as amended, with the printer number now being 2206? It's agreed to. Clerk will read the title and a brief description of the bill.
This bill provides for public transportation, public trust fund, public transportation operations, and funding for roads and bridges.
This bill has been considered on 3 different days and agreed to. The question is, shall the bill pass the House finally? Chair recognizes the gentleman from Crawford County, Representative Roy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's a very simple solution to better fund public transportation in Pennsylvania. It's called a $1 fare increase. $1. The governor said the other day about 1 million people a day use public transportation in Pennsylvania. If every trip cost $1 more, that would be $365 million a year more for public transportation. The bill before us is around $300 million, so it'd actually be more money for public transportation. Madam Speaker, currently the SEPTA system, actual fare-paying customers only pay about 20% of the cost. In Pittsburgh, actual fare-paying customers only pay about 14% of the cost. You have federal, state, and local taxpayers paying 86% of the cost in Pittsburgh, 80% of the cost in Philly. That's not right, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, everybody that uses a vehicle to commute, their costs have gone up over the last several years, but most transit agencies have not had a fare increase, or over the last 20 years, they went from $2 to $3 or some insignificant thing like that. A lot of our constituents, they spend 15, 20, 25 bucks a day in gasoline, tolls, parking, maintenance, car payments, repairs, oil changes. It's expensive to have a vehicle, and you don't have taxpayers subsidizing 80% of the cost of our vehicles. It's not right, Madam Speaker, for us to take more of the sales tax dollars to allocate to mass transit. If there's ever any hope to have school property tax reform, we need sales tax revenue to offset school property taxes. This increases the amount of sales tax money that goes to mass transit. It's going to be something like over 10% of all sales tax money collected would go to public transportation if this actually becomes law. So for every $100 in sales tax you pay, $10 goes to mass transit. Having the users pay more is the most logical solution. It's a bargain, Madam Speaker. For $3 or $4, people can get on a bus, get to where they're going. They're not paying tolls. They're not paying $5 or $10 or $20 a day for parking. They're not paying $1,500 a year for auto insurance. It's a bargain, Madam Speaker, for people that utilize mass transit. And there's no way state taxpayers, the budget proposal spends $5 billion more than we're going to take in. We can't afford to take more of the sales tax money to spend it on mass transit when we already have a $5 billion deficit we're dealing with. So, Madam Speaker, I urge a no vote, and I urge all the transportation agencies, including CATA in my district, EMTA in my district, SEPTA, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, all of them, raise your fares, have the passengers pay more of the cost. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Allegheny, Representative Gatos.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to talk about funding for mass transit and how critical it is. Mass transit is an essential component to our society, and mass transit is crucial for our workforce to get to work. It's crucial for people to get to hospitals and people to get around efficiently. It's environmentally sound, and it reduces pollution. There is no debate that mass transit is essential, and we must fund it. The real issue here is how this is being funded. We must fund mass transit properly and efficiently, not unfairly. So today I rise to speak about this calamity, and the calamity is this particular bill because it's the way that the bill is being put forth in the first place. We were here on Sunday, dragged into on a Sunday night, costing the taxpayer millions of dollars when it should be negotiated as part of the budget. But that's one thing. So this is, in my opinion, House Bill 788 is a charade because it is not a part of the budget negotiations. Secondly, my district is in Allegheny County, and I support mass transit, and I support the PRT. But I also rise to say that this particular bill rips off Pittsburgh. It rips off every other part of the state when it allows SEPTA to take a disproportionate amount of the money, especially when SEPTA is in financial problems. SEPTA currently runs a $1.7 billion deficit, and that is 5 times the national average. Why is nobody looking at that? Can you imagine how many more people can be served if SEPTA was not in financial crisis? Can you imagine how many more people in Pittsburgh and other areas would get the service, and how many more people would ride the bus, and how many bus routes would not be cut? SEPTA is 6 times the size of PRT, yet gets 12 times the money. Something is critically wrong. We should not be bailing out a failing system. At some point, it is wasteful government, and we all pay for this. So until Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas in our state get their fair share, I will be a no vote, and I urge everybody to vote no. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. Chair recognizes the maker of the bill, the gentleman from Philadelphia County, Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for returning to Harrisburg today to address an urgent and time-sensitive issue for not only my district, but for all 67 counties in this Commonwealth. I represent Northeast Philadelphia, which is served by SEPTA. On August 24th, just 13 days away, transit services in my district and the entire Southeast region will be slashed by another 20%, for a total of 45% service cuts this fiscal year. These cuts will be devastating to my neighbors who rely on SEPTA every single day to get to work, school, and medical appointments. These cuts will also impact my neighbors who do not use SEPTA by adding 275,000 more vehicles to our already congested roads. 100,000 people commute into Center City, Philadelphia each day, but there are only 45,000 parking spaces. I don't know about you all, but I hate traffic. Last week, SEPTA announced what bus lines will be cut if they do not receive additional funding by August 14th. Today is August 11th. My neighbors are out of time. We are out of time. These cuts would hurt real people, destroy jobs, and hurt businesses of every size. These cuts do not need to happen. SEPTA is not asking for special treatment. We are simply asking for our fair share of the 40% of the state's revenue, which comes from the Southeast region. We cannot only support Philadelphia and the Southeast when the Eagles are winning. Let me be clear. The crisis is not just about SEPTA. Other transit systems statewide are preparing to make cuts of their own. My colleagues from outside of the Southeast region will soon be facing the same difficult choices that my district is facing today, including rural communities. This House has made it clear that we support funding for all transit services in all 67 counties, rural, suburban, and urban communities alike. My bill accomplishes that, along with all the reforms demanded by our Senate Republican colleagues, without raising any taxes or fees. My bill is supported by every single transit agency across Pennsylvania. The Senate demanded additional oversight over transit agencies. My bill includes Republican language from Senate Bill 952, requiring the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee to complete annual reviews of both SEPTA and Pittsburgh Regional Transit. The Senate demanded that transit agencies use more public-private partnerships. My bill includes Republican language from Senate Bill 953, requiring both SEPTA and Pittsburgh Regional Transit to submit a proposal for public-private partnerships within 90 days. The Senate demanded that we hold transit agencies accountable for bad performance. My bill includes Republican language from the Senate, Bill 954, requiring both SEPTA and Pittsburgh Regional Trail to meet new minimum performance standards or face a reduction in funding. The Senate demanded that we modernize transit's business model. My bill includes Republican language from Senate Bill 713, allowing transit agencies to display digital advertising signs on their vehicles and bring in new advertising revenue. Finally, the Senate demanded more funding for roads and bridges. My bill invests an additional $325 million for road and bridge projects and dedicates $150 million specifically towards projects on 3- and 4-digit state roads, which are typically smaller roads. This bill is not just about Philadelphia or the Southeast. This bill funds roads and bridges that I may never use, that my neighbors may never use. I support that because I know that in some districts, people need roads and bridges to get around. And as a Commonwealth, we are in this together. It doesn't matter if you're in Pittsburgh, Allentown, Reading, Erie, Scranton, Lancaster, Harrisburg. All 67 counties need public transit to get around. We are out of time. Let's keep Pennsylvania moving. I urge support for this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair thanks the maker of the bill. On that question, Chair recognizes the Minority Chair of Transportation, Representative Benninghoff, gentleman from Center.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I too respect the varying opinions and the different regional interests. Congratulations to the newer member who spoke well there on this issue. I don't suspect we're going to conquer everything that we want to today, and seldom do we ever fix all the problems with one bill. I won't get into the whole process of how we got here today on a single bill. But I do think it's important we raise a couple issues. And to my colleague, Representative Rowe hit some very good data there. But we're talking about using sales tax revenue, which can be volatile, and there's no guarantee of growth. This is not necessarily new money, but it's money that's currently being spent on other things, which will be reallocated to guarantee a particular system a certain amount of money. Obviously, if the sales tax revenue decreases, increases the percentage transferring back and forth will probably cause other programs within the budget to be slashed. I think we need to be mindful of that. I worry that this also kicks the problem down the road. For those who've been here for a couple years, or those who plan on being here for a couple more years, you're going to have this same debate, should we pass this bill in its entirety? My other concern is in this proposal, as stated, the mass transit systems, which I do support. Frankly, my father drove for 18 years, will receive money in perpetuity, continually. At the same time, while there's some crumbs thrown out there for roads and bridges in the rural areas, these funds are limited. It's 2 years, and ironically, in this bill, it decreases from $150 million to $125 million just in the second year. That does not bode very well for rural Pennsylvania. And this should not just be a rural versus urban, but the reality in rural Pennsylvania is we have many bridges which are weight limited. What does that mean? Well, that means if you need the fire truck to come over and it's too heavy, it has to go several miles out of the way to get to your property. The water truck that oftentimes in rural areas where there are not hydrants that has to refill that pumper truck also has to go miles around each time it comes back to refill. Not to mention what this does to agriculture, who also has very heavy trucks hauling milk on a daily basis, which we enjoy statewide. Drinking milk is not a regional issue. Bonding, as part of this bill, is most concerning for a one-time payment, which will result in a repayment program which could cost double the amount that's being bonded. And that doesn't even include the interest over a 20-year time period, if that is a time period of the bond. Bonding $325 million may seem like a lot, but that's a drop in a bucket when we talk about the needs for rural roads and bridges, keeping in mind the amount of bridges and roads that Pennsylvania has. I won't go into that detail, but for an example, you look at the I-83 bridge construction here in Harrisburg, which is slated to cost $1.2 billion. We're going to put $325 million in this proposal. It's almost insulting to that part of this discussion. Not to mention that the bonding, I think, in this situation is irresponsible. The bond language in this bill and allocation of revenue in the motor license fund is so broad that we're essentially creating another program, another fund to be distributed by one or two people, the governor and the Secretary of PennDOT. I suspect a no vote might hinder your ability to receive any of that, but we'll talk about that later. We're moving money from the motor license fund into a restricted account, it says, within the motor license fund to be redistributed by PennDOT, when the funds were already in there, set to be sent to roads and bridges. That's redundant at best, silly at worst. Creating a new fund makes no sense to me. We could talk all day, and I suspect it's not going to change the outcome of the votes. But I think my colleague spoke very easily. All we're asking for is some fairness in the system. Those of us who do not ride transit, obviously, are helping to subsidize it, just as those who have urban areas that do a lot of transit will say that their economy helps subsidize the state. Welcome to a Commonwealth. But in my opinion, there's no indication that injecting this money is really going to alleviate all the threats of cutting these systems. And it surely is not going to happen by August 14th. No bill today being passed is going to stop that on the 14th. I don't know if that date's arbitrary or not. But the system here will not allow that to happen timely. I do think it's good to look at things historically, because we have steadily increased mass transit funding, and we're spending now over about $2 billion on mass transit across the state. That funding has increased over 45% since 2018 to 2019. When is enough enough? I don't have that answer. But I do know in road construction, the cost to do road construction, both in labor and materials, has also increased 45% from 2022 to present. That's a lot of money. And Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me one last moment, for comparison why there's concerns about why there is not more local inclusion of raising the fare, whether it's 50 cents or $1, I think we had a good example stated earlier. I and my colleague from the State College have hundreds of people that are state employees right now that are waiting to find out whether they're going to be employed within the penal institutions of the prisons. They're told they're guaranteed a job, even if it means they got to travel an extra 67 miles a day. Something tells me that they'll be more than willing to spend the money on gas at $3.20, $3.50 to travel that 67 miles just to keep that job. But it doesn't make it any easier on them. To ask for a simple fare, responsible fare increase of 50 cents or $1 is not that much. Madam Chair, I do not believe this bill is complete. I don't think it's the answer to the situation. And frankly, we will be back having the same discussion in another year or two. Madam Chair, I will be a no vote. I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Philadelphia, the Majority Chair of Transportation, Representative Nielsen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I thank you all for returning here today on such a critical issue that's facing our Commonwealth. I understand and respect that some members aren't happy to be here. I get it. I'm not happy either. I share your frustration here. I'm also not happy about today's vote. The problem should have been resolved back in June. Should have been resolved last June and the year before. We've been trying this year after year after year after year. Before I get into share my words, I want to talk a little bit about some things we heard today, what this bill does and doesn't do. Well, I know what it does for Philadelphia County. It subsidizes our passenger by 85 cents per passenger. Crawford County per passenger gets $2.94 per passenger under this bill. We heard about increase in fares and stuff like that. That's an increase. So if you want to do fair and talk about fair share, we need to start paying our fair share. Because Philadelphia, the 5-county, and Allegheny County, we've been paying our fair share for quite some time now. Quite some time. I heard the gentlelady from out west talk about they're not getting their share. We are. And the reason we're not getting more of that share is because of our rural brothers and sisters in this room that are not doing the right thing today. A right thing is to vote for this bill. It's been asked why we're moving a bill that's not agreed to, and it is a bill. Yesterday it wasn't a real bill, but it's a real bill. House Bill 1788 is a bill. It's a piece of legislation. We can all see it in front of us. It is legislation, and that's how the legislation process works. We introduce a bill, we pass it through committee, and then we bring it up on the House floor for a vote. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to give the Senate another option to do the right thing. Because we've been asking them year after year, time after time, and we keep sending them the options. And they go, well, it doesn't have this in it. Oh, it doesn't have that in it. Well, we put this, that, and more in this legislation. Arbitrary date, the 14th. No, that's a real date. It's real. It's as real as the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. It's a real date. Our people are going to get hurt. And you're going to get hurt too. And I think that's the part that you're not grasping. You will get hurt. Everybody in this Commonwealth is going to get hurt. Because if we shut down the economic engine by not getting people to jobs in Philadelphia and Southeast PA, there is no taxes being paid to this Commonwealth. I said, 5-county area plus Allegheny, 46% of the entire state budget comes out of there. We're paving, policing, and plowing those roads and bridges in Crawford County and every other rural county area. We're paying for it. And we're not asking you to bail out because, frankly, Potter, Crawford, and I mean, I could go on, and I don't want to. You can't help us. Okay, you can't bail us out. You can't help our systems. You don't have enough. Okay, you really don't. However, we don't mind helping you out because that's what the City of Brotherly Love does. That's what we do. We don't mind paying more than our fair share to help you. We don't. We don't. You don't have the resources. But when we come up here and we travel up here just like you do, and we ask, can we keep a little bit more of our own? You keep saying no. You got to help us out. You keep wanting us to help you. We need you to help us. This is real. We'll have a SEPTA moves 1 million people a day. 1 million people. It's no joke. It's no joke. Look, I can go on forever. I'm getting angry. And I don't want to be angry. We need your help. We need your help. We need you to send a message to the Senate to come back to work and do this bill or do one of the other bills we gave them. We gave you plenty of legislation over there. Just take a vote. We all hear they're coming in this week, which is exciting news. They're coming in on Tuesday. If they keep the date, we don't know that. We won't know that till tomorrow night. We'll see if they come in. I hope they do. And I hope they take the transit system and the transit funding in all 67 counties seriously. And is it the answer as the previous? It's not the answer because we're going to have to deal with this. Because transportation is not just about roads and bridges and public transit. We have ports, we have airports. We have a whole lot of issues facing our Commonwealth. And we're here to make difficult decisions. Not easy. It's easy to throw no votes up. It's real easy. It's hard to put the right vote up and vote yes. So today, I ask you for a yes vote on House Bill 1788 and hope you can support us, and I'll submit the rest of my comments for the record. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Schuylkill, Representative Chwarzik.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In trying to understand fairness, if you're doing Dutch treat, it's 50-50. If you're doing 15% of your bill, that's not really fair. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair seeks additional speakers before going to the floor leaders. Chair is about to go to the floor leaders on final passage of House Bill 1788. Seeing no additional colleagues to be recognized, Chair recognizes the gentleman from Bedford, Representative Topper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My good friend, the gentleman from Philadelphia, mentioned that this House has passed bills over to the Senate and given them options, and the Senate hasn't moved them. Pretty sure the Senate has passed bills over here that have not gotten votes either. That is the way the process works in divided government. And so when that happens, the answer is to go into a room and figure out which pieces of legislation, particularly when it comes to the budget, can pass both chambers. SEPTA is in crisis. There is no doubt about that. There is shared blame to go around, including by some of the mismanagement and problems within the troubled system over the years. I think that any funding must be accompanied by real accountability and real reforms on behalf of all the taxpayers, including the ones in the city of Philadelphia, accountability and safety measures that will benefit our friends and brethren in the city of Philadelphia. I'm passionate about ensuring that they have a sustainable system as well moving forward, because the current system is not sustainable. It is why we continue to come back here time and time again. I believe there are options to coming to an agreement on fully funding and fully reforming this system and other systems that are troubling this Commonwealth. The fiscal realities that we need to come to grips with in this building are real. I think we should ask ourselves, anytime we put forth legislation and we come up, particularly this time of year for a vote, when we talk about the hour being late, and it is, will this help us get to the end goal of a completed budget product? We've passed a SEPTA funding bill out of the House of Representatives. We're about to do it again. But is that going to get the job done? The answer is no. After this vote today, the transportation needs of the Commonwealth will not yet be met. SEPTA will not be reformed in a way that creates sustainability in the long term. A budget will not be complete with the passage of this bill today. In divided government in Pennsylvania, getting stuff done requires all sides to somehow come to an agreement. And we are not yet at that spot. But here's my biggest concern about House Bill 1788. Regardless, and we've heard the debate on the language, we've heard the debate on the issues by the two chairmen who have done yeoman's work in trying to put something together. But at the end of the day, what troubles me most about House Bill 1788 is that the passage of it today and the continued insistence on playing the blame game moves us farther away from an agreement than closer. And again, the question we must ask ourselves, are the actions that we're taking bringing us closer to a finished product or taking us down a path that is actually further away? And I can guarantee you that this is taking us down a path that is further away from a budget agreement. It's the difficult part of governing and the difficult part of leading is finding a way to bring two sides together that simply disagree fundamentally on the direction of the Commonwealth and the issues that are impacting Pennsylvania right now. This budget impasse will not be settled with clever TikToks, with social media battles, with press conferences. It will not be solved by continuing to pass bills out of a chamber because the majority of either side can show that it can be done. If our job is done after today, and if their job is done after Wednesday, and there's still no budget, then no one's job is done. Not the House, not the Senate, and not the governor. This is not the time to pass bills back and forth and claim some sort of moral high ground, because we know that these very actions are doing the opposite of what needs to be done. I have been consistent that a safe, reliable, sustainable transit system is essential to the health of Pennsylvania's economy, as is a student-centered educational system that gives parents the right to decide where their kids go to school, a thriving energy industry, sustainable social service programs, and a host of other extremely vital parts of this budget. And this bill moves us further away from the path of success of any of those issues. Because as I said last night, you don't get to do a budget in a silo. It all has to work together. I've heard over the past few months and today that the hour is late. And indeed it is. It's far too late for political movers, blame games, and showmanship. Now is a time for true leadership, true statesmanship. And it was not that long ago that we stood on this House floor in what many called an impossible situation at the time. It was a 101-101 House, deadlocked at a number on swearing-in day. And there were whispers, and quite frankly, not too quiet ones, that in today's political climate, in today's political culture, there's no way we could find a path forward. For 3 months, this House was able to operate in a way that no one thought was possible. Because we stepped up. We put ideology, even though we disagree on so many issues, to the side to ensure that this institution, which has been here long before any of us and will be here long after, was able to function on behalf of the people. It is time for that kind of leadership again. This is not about us. This is not about who can be blamed. It's about finding ways to accomplish this very difficult task that has been set before us. And I can assure you there is a path. There is a path to getting this done. This is not it, but we still have time to find it. It's a path that involves reforms to SEPTA and other transit agencies and other government programs, sustainability, turning around our demographics here in Pennsylvania. It involves solutions that don't just worry about how the kids get to school, which is vitally important, but also deals with what happens when they get there. If we have public schools in any sense that have 0% proficiency in reading and math, then what are we doing? We have to find a way to solve these issues and save kids from a system that has fundamentally failed them. It all works together, and we must work together to get it done. The governor must lead, we must lead, and we must get back into the room, no matter how uncomfortable that room may be, and truly get the job done. Madam Speaker, we are out of time, so let's stop wasting it. Thank you very much.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Montgomery County, Representative Bradford, on final passage of House Bill 1788.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first, I want to acknowledge what I often do, which is the wisdom, the decency, and the humility of the good minority leader. I remember well the way we started this session, and I am mindful of the admonition I gave that we will be humble. And I am equally mindful of how other sessions before started. Those who thought politics and the cute trick was better than the hard job. We governed through that mess as well, one that was brought upon us. But let me tell you something, we will not make those mistakes again. This majority will be humble and wise, and it will follow the lead of the good minority leader in that admonition. We remember how we wound up in this mess, and we're going to move forward. I also remember a quote often used by our governor, but speaking of his faith, he says, "My faith teaches me that no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it." This august body, this House of Representatives, this majority can tell you we have not refrained from the task. We showed up for weeks when no one else was in this building. We've made offers that were never responded to. We have shown a path forward. I like and respect the minority leader much, but I'm going to remind him something of sixth grade civics. Yes, there is a place for the quiet conversation, and we've had those, and we've had them with the other chamber. We've had those discussions many times for many months, not just over this budget or over this transit agency, but frankly, for successive budgets. We have received no answer. The other body has simply not attended. They have been on vacation. They have not shown up. That is not acceptable. That is refraining from the task. Now, one can argue that the majority on the other side has the right not to concur, and they do. They can amend, and they should. But what they cannot do, when millions of Pennsylvanians are going to pay the price for their inaction and their failure to show up, what they cannot do is remain silent anymore. I am appreciative of the fact that they are showing up tomorrow, and I want the loud words to stop. I understand what happens on social media will happen, but I will tell you as someone who's in those rooms, as are you, that there is a willingness to get this done. Because I heard words from you that say there is a real crisis. And you're hearing on the other side people that are saying, we will meet you more than halfway. We didn't run 5 bills for showmanship, my good friend. We're running them because we're showing that we will continue to turn the Rubik's Cube. No matter how many times the answer on the other side is silent, we will not give up on people that are going to be adversely impacted by the failure of one body to respond in any meaningful way. That is humility. It would be easy to say, this is our proposal, take it or leave it. We've said this is 5 proposals. Take any of it, take some of it, but for the love of God, please take something. That's humility. And that is in the wisdom that I take from your good words. That's from what I know of 6th grade civics, that they have an obligation now to govern, pass a real one-year budget. This body has shown what it can pass. They must show what they can pass. Let's be clear. We don't do it with 102 Democrats. We do it with a body in a bipartisan way. That's what we passed, a bipartisan budget. They are going to have to pass a bipartisan budget. You cannot do it with one party or one chamber. Now, the juxtaposition, and I want to stay away from the heated words. The good gentleman from Crawford, we disagree on everything. But I want you to know, if there was a challenge in Crawford County, I would hope 102 Democrats would show up. I know in my heart of hearts, as good Pennsylvanians, good Christians, good people, that that is their obligation. That is our obligation to each other. We are a commonwealth, as the good gentleman from Center reminds us. We answer the call for each other. The mindless parochialism, whether it seeps into my caucus or the other. My caucus, my district is not big mass transit users. But that is not an excuse to say this is not a real problem. And I got to tell you, when my neighbors say, oh, it's going to be horrible when Red October comes, I can't imagine what's going to do next year for the All-Star game. I'm mindful of St. Hubert's in Northeast Philly, where my comms director went to school, and what it's going to do in that school. I'm aware of the nursing home that's not going to have a 2nd and 3rd shift because they take care of your mom and mine. When I hear the mindless parochialism that says we're not interconnected and that we have no obligation to each other, it pains my heart, and it should pain every Pennsylvanian. The juxtaposition between those in Allegheny County from the good minority party who said, I can't vote for it for X, Y, Z reason. There's been so many excuses. And again, I'm not casting blame, I'm just stating facts. I remember there was a time where some of our Senate colleagues said, well, we need to pass skilled games. They told us 2.5 years ago that bill would be here by now. They told us they need safety issues. They're being addressed and they're incorporated into this bill. They told us they needed cleanliness issues. The amount of money being spent on that by the new general manager is historic. They needed oversight. The good lady who sits over your shoulder to the good minority leader is your appointee to the SEPTA board. I don't do that to point her out. I say that to recognize that she served well on that board, and so is the appointees on both sides of the aisle. Let's not act like we don't all have oversight over any one of these agencies, including PRT and the other 67 counties. At one point, they said we needed more money for roads and bridges. And at one point, they said they needed bonding. All those things are in here, but yet I'm aware of the admonition from the good gentleman from Center County who said we're broke, ignoring the fact we have $11 billion in the bank. Historic numbers, actually, for the Commonwealth. I don't mean to rain on anyone's parade, but a little interjection of a little truth about our current financial status in the Commonwealth. But yet, recognizing we have huge cuts coming from Washington, D.C., and we need to be prepared for what's coming from them. But what I can't get my head around is those who say, we don't have $300 million for mass transit, but $300 million for roads and bridges isn't enough. The juxtaposition of that is impossible to thread the needle. We've got to stop with that type of political rhetoric. It's no different than the mindless parochialism that others pointed to. All of these excuses, skilled games, safety, cleanliness, oversight, roads and bridges, bonding, they're in this bill. They were the very excuses that we heard why we couldn't vote for this before. But yet today we hear even new excuses. Guys, we are unfortunately not out of excuses. I got to tell you, the House has created new ones today. But here's what we are out of. We are out of time. We are out of time for this mindless back and forth. The good lady from Allegheny told me what she was against. She never told me what she was for once. 5 times. 5 times the House has said what it's for and how it would fund it and turn the Rubik's Cube looking for a solution. The Senate hasn't even shown up. I am hopeful, even in this dark hour, that the Senate's going to show up and they're going to heal their wounds and divisions within that body and within that caucus. And they are going to propose a budget that they can get 26 votes for and show us what they can pass. Because that is what the taxpayers of Pennsylvania pay them to do. Show us what they can pass, not raiding funds that they know are already encumbered. Show us what you can pass to fund 67 transit agencies in Pennsylvania. Show us what you can pass out of your chamber to pass a budget. It is the 11th of August. They've not been in session in the new fiscal year. They've yet to pass a budget for the new fiscal year. And again, I want to wind up, or conclude at least, where I started. There is wisdom in what the good gentleman said, and it is heard by the majority party, which is humble enough to recognize that we will have to compromise. We have bent over backward trying to compromise and to meet halfway. And I know the gentleman wants to talk about a lot of other issues that he would like passed in a final budget. Show us what the Senate can pass. Advocate for them to do their job. And when they show up tomorrow, don't do the performative, do something meaningful. Show us what 26 senators can pass. And then let's have a discussion in those quiet rooms that you so desire. But here, for the public space, what you need to see is what governing looks like. And what people need to understand is there's real pain that's going to be inflicted by the failure of those who've abrogated their duty. We have an obligation not to refrain from the task. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair thanks the leader. Agreeable to the provisions of the Constitution, the yeas and nays will now be taken. Members will proceed to vote. Have all the members voted? Have all the members voted? Clerk will record the vote on final passage of the bill. The yeas are 108, the nays are 95. The majority required by the Constitution having voted in the affirmative, the bill passes the House finally, and the clerk will present the same to the Senate for concurrence. Colleagues, we do have an additional guest and a few announcements. In the gallery, a friend of the mace bearer is here for morning session. We're thrilled to welcome Fanny from Michigan. Please stand and welcome to the floor of the House, Fanny. Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Chester County, Representative Frill Otten, for an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This week in Pennsylvania, we are kicking off one of our great American traditions, the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And I just want to wish a big congratulations and best wishes to the Glenmore Eagle Youth Association 8 to 10 baseball team, which will be representing the Mid-Atlantic region on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Delaware County, Representative Vitale, for a committee announcement.
The House Environmental Committee will be meeting now for a public hearing on the subject of waste coal in room G50.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Cambria County, Representative Burns, for a committee announcement.
I'd like to just make an announcement, not a committee announcement. I'd like to congratulate the girls from Cambria County for winning the Softball World Series this weekend. Congratulations, girls.
Chair thanks the gentleman. For the information of the members, there will be no further votes. The chair is in receipt of a motion from the gentleman from Philadelphia, Representative Nielsen. The House now adjourned until Monday, September 22nd, 2025 at 12 noon, unless sooner recalled by the Speaker. Questions on the motion? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House stands adjourned until Monday, September 22nd, 2025 at 12 noon, unless sooner recalled by the Speaker.